Let's talk about one of the most recognizable practices in the entire Islamic world, the Friday congregational prayer. But what if I told you that the one verse it's based on might mean something completely different when you look at it word by word, using only the Quran as your guide? So our guide for this breakdown comes from a source that uses a really specific method called tasrif. What that means is every single insight we're going to talk about comes from analyzing how the Quran uses its own words, without leaning on outside traditions or interpretations. It's a pure, deep dive into the text itself.
And this brings up a huge, fascinating question. I mean, think about it. What if a global practice, a cornerstone for millions of people every single week, is built on just one verse? And what if the way we've always understood that verse isn't quite what the text itself is saying?
And, according to the source material we're looking at, that's exactly what's going on. This whole institution of the mandatory Friday prayer, it all hangs on this one single verse in the 60-second chapter. So yeah, the stakes for getting this right are pretty high.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we have to become linguistic detectives. We're going to break this verse down piece by piece and look at 4 key words, letting the Quran be our only dictionary.
All right, our first clue is the word al-Jumu'ah. Now, pretty much everyone on the planet translates this as Friday, but let's hold on a second and just see how the root of this word is used everywhere else in the text. Now, what's really striking when you look at this is just how consistent it is. The root JM always means to gather, to assemble, to bring things together. It's used for the final gathering on the day of resurrection, even for the collection of the Quran itself. The theme is always about assembly, not a specific day of the week.
So, the big takeaway here, based on the Quran's own language, is that Yom al-Jumu'ah basically means a day of gathering or a time when people congregate. The text is describing an event, not a date on the calendar. That link to the day we call Friday, well, that seems to be an interpretation added on later.
All right, let's move on to our next clue, the word Salat. It's almost always understood as the ritual prayer, with all the specific movements and postures, but the Quran actually paints a much, much broader picture. Okay, this right here might just be the most mind-blowing piece of evidence in this whole analysis. The Quran says that Allah and His angels perform Salat on believers. Now, obviously, God doesn't perform a physical ritual, so that just forces us to rethink the core meaning of the word. It simply cannot be just a set of physical movements. And this quote just sums it up perfectly. Salat isn't just an action you do, it's a state of being. It's an attentive orientation of connection. When God does it, it's mercy and support. When we do it, it's about consciously connecting with that divine source. Our third word to investigate is fasa'u, which usually gets translated as hasten or rush. It gives you this sense of urgency, of speed. But does the root word actually back that up? Looking across the Quran, the root shin yai is all about purposeful, intentional effort. It's used for working towards a goal, good or bad, and for the kind of essential striving that really defines a person. It's about deliberate action, not panicked rushing. So when the verse says, "Fas'au ila dhikrillah," a much more accurate translation, based on the text's own vocabulary, would be move purposefully or strive intentionally toward the remembrance of Allah. It's a command to orient your entire being, not just to move your feet faster. So if we're supposed to move purposefully, where are we going? This brings us to our last and maybe the most important clue. The verse tells people to strive toward Dhikr Allah, the remembrance or consciousness of God. The Quran actually sets up a clear hierarchy here. Salat, that conscious connection, is established for the purpose of Dhikr. And get this, another verse flat out says that Dhikr is greater than Salat. So the ultimate goal isn't just the action of connecting, it's the state of awareness that it's supposed to create. So the real insight here is that the command isn't just to perform some external action. It's a call to move toward an internal state, a conscious awareness of God. The gathering, the Jumu'ah, is just the setting where this is supposed to happen. Okay, so we've put the key words under the microscope. Now let's zoom out and see how this verse fits into the verses right around it and the theme of the whole chapter. Check this out. The very next verse is the other half of the equation. You're told to leave your business, your commerce. But then, as soon as the salat is done, you're told to disperse and go seek God's bounty again. This isn't about rejecting worldly life. It's about hitting the pause button to reorient yourself.
And this fits perfectly with the theme of the whole chapter. It opens by talking about a messenger sent to teach people and help them grow. And then it criticizes those who carry Scripture but don't understand it. So verse 9 is like the practical how-to guide for the chapter's main point, how to actively and consciously engage with guidance.
Okay, the investigation is done. Now we get to put all the clues together and compare the two very different pictures that have emerged, the one built by tradition and the one described by the Quran's own words.
And wow, look at the difference. On the left, you see a very specific, time-bound, rule-heavy ritual. But on the right, based on our word-for-word analysis, you see a dynamic, living principle. It's about what you should do whenever a community gathers. Pause your business, purposefully reconnect with a higher consciousness, and then go back into the world, carrying that awareness with you.
So what's the big idea we're left with? The source argues that this verse isn't laying down the law for a static weekly ritual. Instead, it's giving us a living principle for how to weave spiritual awareness right into the fabric of our daily lives.
This really breaks it down perfectly. You can see it as a cycle. Step 1, you're in your ordinary life, engaged in your work. Step 2, there's a gathering and a call to pause and consciously reconnect. And step 3, you go right back into that life. But now you're meant to carry that state of remembrance and awareness with you.
And all of this leaves us with one final, powerful question to really think about. What's the real goal of any spiritual practice? Is it about perfecting the outward form of the ritual itself, or is it about cultivating the inner state of awareness that the ritual was designed to build in the first place?